Hi there, welcome to Adventure. We hear so much about missiles nowadays, I think we sometimes forget that missile is not a 20th century word invented by Cape Canaveral. Here is a different kind of missile, a much older kind. It's a sliver of bamboo, that's all. But when a tuft of cotton is wrapped around this end, like this, and the native poison curare is applied to this end, it becomes the deadly poison dart of the Ecuadorian Indians. They live in the upper part of the Amazon in the hills and forests of eastern Ecuador. Their whole life is war, war with neighboring clans, with evil spirits, and with the jungle they inhabit. To this day, the Ecuadorians are headhunters, and these are the people Bob Kaulp visited a short while ago to record their music and photograph their customs and rites, including the shrinking of a human head. We'll take a good close-up look at the Ecuadorians in this half hour. They're a primitive people, yes, but most of all, they're fiercely independent. The jungle keeps them pretty well sealed off behind the green curtain, and they like it that way. I'm sure that you'll agree that penetrating that curtain, as Bob Kaulp did, makes for a highly unusual and exciting true adventure. This is a world of fear, a world of blood feud and witchcraft. These jungles are the domain of the headhunters, the Ecuadorian Indians. Here are a people who never forgive an enemy. Revenge is a religious obligation, and courage, cunning, and a knowledge of the jungle have enabled them to resist the white man's form of civilization for 400 years. You take your life in your hands when you enter Ecuador country, but anthropologist Robert Kaulp is willing to risk it. Down there in eastern Ecuador live some of the most extraordinary primitive people to survive into modern times, and Bob Kaulp is determined to meet these people. The pilot takes the plane down for a landing on the riverbank, and the real beginning of this true adventure. Ecuador country lies in the upper reaches of the Amazon basin. We'll be visiting among the southern Ecuadorians, members of the Ayshuara tribe. When one of these people refers to the, and I quote, enemy, he's almost sure to mean the northern Ecuadorians, who are simply called the Shuara. Now, this is Bob Kaulp, a man whose scientific curiosity is so strong, he's walking into the hands of the headhunters just to satisfy it. Now, the hard part of the journey begins. Into the jungles of the Amazon. Ecuador villagers don't believe in friendly visitors, so the approaches to their villages are well booby-trapped to kill or wound any intruder. Only the villagers themselves know what to look for and where. This is an old muzzle-loading shotgun. The important thing about it is, it works. To the villagers, the shotgun blast is the sign of approaching trouble. But the warriors won't be taking any heads this time. At least not before Bob has had a chance to talk to them. Because his interpreter, Ricardo Rubio, comes from a frontier village, and his mother was a Ecuadorian. the Aishawara tribesmen accept him as a guide and a go-between. First, he has to convince them that Bob isn't here on a government punitive expedition. You see, head hunting has been outlawed, but the Jivaros still practice it openly. They've learned to expect reprisals every time a white man appears on the scene. But these fellows allow themselves to be convinced, and they agree to take Bob to see their chief. In the village, Bob is accepted as a friend, and he watches the preparation of poisoned darts, slivers of bamboo tipped with a deadly native poison curare. One of these will kill a man in about 3 minutes. But they're going to be used for hunting wild game after this pre-hunting ritual is completed. The poison maker blows the smoke of native tobacco into the hunter's nostrils. This purifies their senses, sharpens their hearing, makes their eyesight keener. At least they believe it does, and no one can deny that their marksmanship with these primitive weapons is almost unbelievable. To the Jivaros, everything living, plant or animal, has a soul. So everything is a part of the spirit world. And there's hardly any activity that isn't governed by ritual and ceremony. Even simple, everyday things. For example, only men are allowed to hunt animals. Otherwise, it'd be angry spirits to reckon with. A tuft of flax, a cotton-like material, around the end of the dart, provides compression in the barrel of the blowgun and acts as a rudder. Now, we're going to see an actual hunting technique of a Jivaro Indian. In seconds, the poison has done its work. Hunting is not a sport in the jungle. It's a way of getting food for the Jivaros, and monkey paws are a great Jivaro delicacy. The Indians want Bob to try them. They also say that monkey skin stretched over a hollow log makes a fine drum. Not long ago, someone died in the village. Since death is always the result of a curse, this is a ritual of anger. The chief, who is also the village sorcerer, has used his magic powers to identify the enemy responsible. And a war party has gone out to take vengeance. Now, sniffing sacred tobacco juice into his nostrils, the chief blows some onto each man present, purifying him, giving him strength. They pray for revenge and curse their enemies. But fear and hatred aren't full-time occupations among the Jivaros. There is a feast coming up, and on special occasions, they'll serve a specially fattened, pampered pig. This liquid is called chicha. The women make it by chewing manioc root. Human saliva ferments the juice and turns it into a potent alcoholic beverage. A ceremonial drink you can't turn down without severely insulting your Jivaro hosts. And in spite of these friendly faces, no one in his right mind wants to insult a Jivaro headhunter. Here, the women are doing the dance of the yucca, the banana-like crop which is the Jivaro staple. Men do all the hunting and fighting for the village, plus some of the other chores. But raising crops is the woman's province. And this dance serves the magical purpose of helping the crops grow.
In return, the ground they dance on gives them some of its strength, so they may have many Jivaro babies. Secure in their forests, the Jivaros live according to their own strict tribal customs. Fertility dances form a part of their life. So do simple farming and hunting. So do superstition, blood feuds, and sudden death, as we shall see. We're in headhunter country with anthropologist Robert Kaulp. Here in the upper reaches of the great Amazon River basin, Jivaro Indians keep up old traditions of warfare, blood feuds, and magic. These girls live in one of the isolated villages of the Aishawara tribe, the southern Jivaros. Unlike many of today's primitive peoples, these folk are in no rush to catch up with the 20th century civilization. They're quite content being themselves, the same independent jungle people they've always been, following their old tribal customs, like their way of getting ready for a feast, for example. This pigment comes straight from the achiote nut. Other colors are vegetable dyes boiled from native herbs. Roller designs belong to clans, and a man of one clan is forbidden to use the design of another. This is the chief, also the village sorcerer, making an impressive appearance is part of his job. He spares absolutely no effort. It's not quite time for the festivities to begin, so let's meet the musicians. All the Jivaro music you'll be hearing was recorded right on the spot by Bob Kaulp. Ah, this looks like amateur night in the upper Amazon. But there are some people who believe in making every minute count and keep working right up until the start of the feast. It's the spirit world, of course, that says that women shall make pottery among the Jivaros, and oddly enough, it's the men who weave all the cloth. The women, as I mentioned earlier, do the gardening. This girl is gathering yucca plants. These look a lot like bananas, taste more like potatoes, and they've been called the jungle bread of the Jivaros and much of the upper Amazon. This basketful will be served up at the feast, and by the time we get back there, things are really underway. The intoxicating manioc beer called chicha is never far off. The pig we saw in the first half of the program is a featured item on the menu. There are also steamed fish, bananas, yucca plant, plus other members of the banana family, and of course, chicha, lots of chicha. Remember, it's dangerous and an insult to refuse an offer of chicha. So, down the hatch, Bob. And so it goes, until the larder's empty. The sound of the conch shell announces the presentation of returning warriors. The war party that went out to avenge a death in the village has come back with a trophy, a human head. The dead man is avenged. Of course, we would say he died a natural death, but Jivaro magic knows better. A death for a death. Now there are ceremonial matters to take care of. The chief pours some sacred tobacco juice. With it, he will cleanse the returning warriors of the enemy's blood. Until this is done, the men can't eat or return to their wives without bringing evil down on the whole tribe. The community revenge gets going now. The severed head of the enemy embodies all the misery and evil in their lives. If anything goes wrong, it's the enemy. If someone falls sick or dies, the enemy is behind it. Some distant sorcerer has pronounced a curse. So now, with all their fear and hate, they direct it toward the head. Their mood is real, and for the first time, the camera seems to bother them. Bob can't get on-the-spot recordings of this scene. For the first time, he feels and senses danger. There's another change of mood now. The chief pours a concoction of astringent jungle herbs. This is part of the head shrinking process. The liquid will help preserve and tan the human skin. The chief has a helper in this operation, but his function is more religious than practical. He watches every move as a witness to the ceremony. The first part of the shrinking process was performed earlier. Before the raiding party got home, they had already removed the brain and the cranial cap by way of the neck. Now, the bizarre business goes on. Shrinking a human head. The astringent liquid has started the actual shrinking. Now, hot ashes are used to make sure the inside is smooth and clean. The process is repeated. While the shrinking is going on, the warriors comment on the head. They talk about the raid it was taken on. They reminisce about earlier war parties. Hot pebbles come into use now. They'll draw up the head and shrink it further. The shrinking of the head isn't finished yet. Neither are the hate rituals and ceremonies. But from Bob Kaulp's point of view, there's a lot less tension in the air. The villagers are almost in a joyful humor now. But there's a grim undertone to it. Now, it's burning leaves, bundled to give plenty of continuous smoke. The smoke will cure the skin and shrink it even more. The skin becomes blackened. The entire head shrinks to the size of an orange. Once again, it becomes the target for ritual hate. It's threatened, shaken, cajoled even. It's cursed and killed again and again, over and over. The dead villager has been properly avenged. Only one final ceremony remains, the victory dance. The whole population of the village gets into the last act of the head hunters ritual. Even the children. These youngsters are future head hunters. They've learned early that the weak don't survive in Jivaro country. They're taught to hate that unknown enemy from their birth. The victory dance begins. Although this is a victory dance, at the same time it honors the head of the dead enemy. Honors it the way a warrior should be honored, with spear thrusts and curses. The head has been appeased by dancing, so surely its soul won't return to work harm. The head now becomes tribal property. Before, it was an object of hate, nothing more. Now it's being won over. Its past owner's power and cunning now become the possession of the victorious villagers. The victory dance goes on toward its climax and conclusion. But what about the enemy? Will he be back to seek a head in return? Booby traps are set. Scouts watch the rivers. No one knows when the attack will come, but it will come. It may well have happened since Robert Kaulp made these pictures. The blood feud goes on in the jungles of eastern Ecuador. Simple existence is a continuous, fear-filled, true adventure.
Well, those are the Jivaros. They've had a reputation for bloodthirstiness for hundreds of years. But of course, there's more to them than that. They're very intelligent and resourceful, and almost everyone who learns their language says that the Jivaros are natural poets. All in all, I guess you'd say they're as much a collection of contradictions as any of us. And if they don't understand many of our virtues, they're not attracted by too many of our vices either. Which brings us to the most puzzling contradiction of all. The Jivaros are primitives. They're savage headhunters who are trapped by frightening patterns of superstition and myth that prohibit them from changing their ways. Modern civilization and our education could do a lot for them. But the sad fact is that our kind of progress has hardly ever done people like the Jivaro Indians any good at all. In fact, just the opposite. Usually it's brought about the destruction of their society and everything that held it together, good as well as bad. And so the tribespeople wind up worse off than they ever were. They have access to modern medicine, perhaps, and a few other benefits, but they lose their identity, their pride, their independence. And those are values I think we can all understand. I hope you've enjoyed sharing this true adventure with us. Until we meet once again, this is Bill Burrid saying, may all your adventures be happy ones.